Good evening, and welcome back to Street Talk. I want to thank all you people who follow me always as usual. Hope you had a good week, and I hope you're enjoying the shows that we've been putting on. I'm very happy with them. I'm very happy with, we've done everything from the disability shows, which have been very, very important. I want to, one of my people called me up the other day and said, Father, you've only got 22 people who watch you on on Street Talk. I said, oh, that's really great, seeing that we shut the those 22 people that are out there. I love you. You are an army that is unbelievable. You shut the governor's phones down. I need you 22 people who are out there. Last year you passed the juvenile justice sentencing stuff. You're a great 22 people who, and I need all the help I can get. So please stay with me. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about writing. Again, we've had a couple of shows. We had Michael Maynard on with us, a publisher from Little Red Cell, and who's worked with Ralph Ham on his books that we have coming out. We have his new poetry book that should be out pretty quick that we'll be talking about on here. But tonight I got a great guest. I've been looking forward to getting him down here. I've met him through Facebook. He comes from my state and close to where my home is. And it's Michael Maynard. And Michael, bless you. It's so nice to have you on. There's so many things. I always talk to you on Facebook and deal with politics and all kinds of things. But tonight I'd like you to tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me, Father Russ. I've had kind of like 3 different careers. My first career was as a management consultant. I ran as CEO and co-founder of Azimuth Partners, which worked primarily in the high-tech sector. And from there, I've gone into doing more of writing and now editing books. So to me, they're kind of one and the same. Yeah. It's just a different format for doing it. In order to be a good consultant, you need to be a good communicator. You need to be able to address situations as they come along. It doesn't matter what type of business. Same thing as a writer, same thing as a journalist and a columnist. I've wrote for the Washington Post Newsweek syndicate. And it's all, to me, it's about 2 things. It's about common sense and the ability to communicate it. And hopefully that's what I do when I write. I try and take topics that are interesting to me and try and put them in a way that not only explains why they're of interest to me and my point of view, but why someone else should be interested in it as well. And that's kind of what you do.
Yeah. Well, my interests obviously are personal. That's how I met you online and stuff like that. I believe as an advocate, I do kind of, when I listen to you talk and the interest there is you have to be a communicator. Okay, you're always taking ideas and in situations and pushing them forward.
Well, what's curious, and this is blowing my own horn a little bit, but one of the things now, in my second go-around as a writer and columnist, is the ability to anticipate events. My assumption is if they're of interest to me, they will be of interest to someone else. So one of the issues I've been writing about has been the LGBT issue, and wrote back in January about the Jason Collins situation. Jason Collins is a professional basketball player who retired and then came out as being gay. Well, now here we are in March, and we have the Michael Sam story. the first college and soon to be professional football player who's come out to be gay. So I have a wide field of interest, and so part of that is just wanting to understand more. Why is this occurring? What's the real issues associated with this? How do I feel about it? What do I think other people should know? In the case of Jason Collins, was that I felt he should have been Sports Illustrated Man of the Year. Peyton Manning was nominated. He was a great choice, but Peyton Manning was and is a great professional quarterback. Jason Collins was an average, at best, National Basketball Association player. And right before the season, where he could have joined another team, and actually now he's joined the Brooklyn Nets, decided to tell his story to Sports Illustrated about being a gay athlete. These things occur. Having been an athlete for a long time, my assumption has been that there always has been gay athletes. The various estimates say between 2 and 8% of the population is gay. Mm-hmm. So if you have, in the case of the NBA, 720 players, mm-hmm. then there's going to be...
There's going to be gay guys. Yeah, right.
So
my question is, who cares? I guess I'm flippant on the issue because I'm not interested in anybody else's bedroom, you know what I mean? Or their sexual orientation, except for their rights. Obviously, I'm an advocate for gay rights, LBG, the spaghetti thing, okay, that they are out there and they can express themselves. But outside of that, you know.
Well, I think it's interesting from the standpoint that we have this image of the professional athlete.
Right.
And it's very heterosexual, you know, big, strong guys. And all the while, here is this Jason Collins, who's played in the NBA for 13 years, done okay. I mean, you have to be a decent ball player to last for 13, and decided that it was time for him to state his sexuality.
Come out of the closet, right?
So I don't necessarily care about his personal life in that sense, but what I care about is what was it like to be a professional athlete, and the environment in which
the environment. Okay, now see that's of interest.
Yes.
Okay, how do you deal with that with all these macho guys? The reason, one of the reasons for me, most people know that I was a bad guy when I was younger, and I had a group and a gang and all that. Well, several of my associates were gay. I never knew it until I went to prison. I didn't even understand what really gay was until I was in there. And you're talking about serious guys that could, very muscular, big guys. My bodyguard for years was gay, and I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue. So I guess in an environment, I can understand how you could be in an environment and have no idea, unless, of course, if they approached you or something like that, have no idea.
Well, part of it, I spend too much time in locker rooms, as I've written. And this myth that the gay athlete is there checking out all the other people. It's no different than any other sexuality. Are you attracted to every woman that you meet? No,
of course not.
No. So what's the assumption?
Well, I know some people would say yes for me, having 5 ex-wives. But no, I know. I like little levity here, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. In the prison, every shower you got. I was never. Nobody. Maybe because I was ugly or something. I should take offense to that. I was never approached by any gay guys. Everybody talks. So you're in prison,
But there has to be that level of physical interaction. There has to be that level of interest. And if it's not there, you don't create it.
You don't create it, right.
But it's the mentality, and it's the mentality of the locker room. I mean, I've been in baseball, football, golf locker rooms, and to hear what's discussed, if you've not been in them, it's you shake your head and say, well, these guys for real. Recently, I wrote about the case of the Miami Dolphins, Richie Icambroglio and Jonathan Martin. Here's a case of Jonathan Martin, young guy, sensitive, but he's 6'6" and 312 pounds. He's bullied. He's in an environment. He's a Stanford graduate. He's the son of a professional parents, but he is in this environment where it's a macho culture, and so they called him all kinds of names, homosexual names. They called him a Pakistani refugee, a whole lot of really awful things. That's part of the culture. Okay. And for Jason Collins to be in that and not only survive but thrive and come out the other side, and now he's back in playing professional basketball. It's known, and everything's and people are fine with it, and that's the beauty. But at the same time, we're talking now. There's the situation in Arizona. Maybe you want to explain. Maybe you want to explain that.
That's an interesting situation. But the question is, obviously, it's the religious right that is pushing forth the legislation to exclude people from businesses due to their sexual orientation. So the lunch counter argument is really one of the ones that bothers me. We've been through this fight. Okay, well, that's what civil rights was about. Anybody should be able to be at the counter. But obviously, how this legislation is developed and how it's pushed. Yeah. And you did write about, didn't you?
I did write. Yes. Well, there's an organization called the American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC. Which has permeated local and state governments. And they have an agenda. Now, ALEC is sponsored and funded by the Koch brothers, who are big oil and gas magnates. They're number 4 and 5 in the wealthiest people in the world.
In the world, yes.
In the world.
Yeah.
And their father was one of the founders of the John Birch Society. So you kind of understand where their head's coming from, right?
I certainly do.
Yeah. So through ALEC, they're promulgating a whole set of issues ranging from taking back voting rights.
Voting rights, right.
To limit women's reproductive choices and trying to roll back gay marriage. Right. Because that's what they believe. And what they've gone about doing, and I admire them in the wherewithal to do this, is to go and put their delegates in. They can be in your city council, they can be in your state legislature, and they're promoting ALEC's agenda.
Yeah, well, this is a horrendous situation. I mean, they basically start in an area at the lower end of government and give you a template on exactly what their opposition is, help these people push through this type of legislation very sophisticatedly. Obviously, they invest in think tanks that use false science, skewed research, horrible things, and they got the money to do this, and our average person hasn't got a clue that this is happening.
Well, it's only through Rachel Maddow and various other people in the past year that ALEC has come to prominence. There was a big article, there's been articles in the Washington Post, in the LA Times. What kind of broke the story was a young woman who was a legislator in Michigan, managed to get an invitation to the annual ALEC conference. And she went, and she recorded some of the events, but she also wrote down. And she wangled an invitation. They didn't do the due diligence to find out she was a Democratic legislator for some reason. But she recorded what went on, and she came back and said, I had no idea, and it's frightening what they want to do. It's basically a hostile takeover of the country.
Exactly. Well, with the Tea Party people, we see what's going on there. Okay, the Dominion, we call them Dominionists.
Dominionists, yep.
Dominionists, okay. Most of even our religious people do not understand what that means. In effect, you're talking of you want an institution basically of the old biblical law, and you want a religious theocracy to determine what we're going. Our average guy
doesn't know about that.
Doesn't know about that.
Well, the current governor of Texas, Rick Perry,
oh my God,
is a Dominionist. Michelle Bachmann.
Michelle Bachmann is right.
The Tea Party was basically started by the Koch brothers.
I know. I tried to get everybody to read Frank Schaeffer's. I don't know. I'm sure you know. Frank Schaeffer is his father was the Schaeffer that was one of the founders of the religious right, founders, philosopher, and Frank's got a great book about God. He writes for the Huffington Post. He's out of Massachusetts, by the way. And Frank basically started out with them, and then exposed all of what they were doing.
Yes. Now I know. Now I know the book. Yeah.
I can't think of it. I know. I've interviewed Frank. I've had him on the show. And I love his stuff. It's just you know. But you don't know about these things if you're not informed.
Right, and that's part of. And that's part of what I'm trying to do, right. Is because my assumption is that if it's of interest to me, it will be of interest to other parties. And it's interesting to me on how all these things come together. The hot topic last night in the news was about the head of ExxonMobil not wanting to have fracking done in his new
new mansion. Exactly. Right.
Well, he's a member of ALEC.
Yeah.
And one of the sponsors of it, and definitely fracking is one of the techniques and goals sponsored by the Koch brothers. They were one of the first to do that. And so now we have situations like a town in Texas that has no water,
right?
And it goes elsewhere in the country, ranging from the coal ash situation in North Carolina to polluted water, the situation in Louisiana with the oil spill. This is all
to
part
Wyoming.
of.
Can you imagine? I think it was Wyoming that my daughter from the Coast Guard, who does environmental control over the pollution of water and stuff like that, we're in the middle of the country dealing with fracking and oil pollution. Yeah. I mean, they were out there wondering why these Coast Guard guys were out there with the cows. and the destruction to our water. Most people don't know what's happening.
Well, one of the tip-offs, and I maintain that water for the next century will kind of be like what oil is now.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. You know that.
We have friends in California who are very happy because it's raining, but they went through a huge drought.
Absolutely.
There have been wars fought. There have been border wars. There have been wars fought, particularly in the West, about water and diverting water supplies.
Colorado River, major problem.
Major problem.
Bruce Babbitt was trying to I was involved in a few of his stuff, and actually exposed some of the things. And I swore he would never be president because we happened to know when what they were doing with water rights in Arizona and in that area. It's
Well, and it goes back a ways. If you, one of my favorite movies is stars Jack Nicholson, and the name of the movie just went through my head, but it's about water rights in California, and that goes back to the 1940s. But it's going to be a bigger issue, and it's going to be a bigger issue internationally. There are places in India, there are places in Russia, there are places in South America where potable water is scarce.
Yeah, exactly.
And the president of Nestle made a statement last fall saying that he wants to. I mean, Nestle's already in the water business, and you can buy Nestle water,
right.
But he is very much about wanting to gather the water supply and charging big money for it. So something that we take for granted, water, the availability of water, may not be able to take that for granted much longer.
No, I know it. And even with salinization and everything else, when they talk about, I mean, strategically, I'm a student of wars, I guess, and military, and have been most of my life. And when I can't think of the land, the mass that's up in Russia, that they're not going to have any water within probably the next 15 years, and it's going to displace millions of people, and they don't know where they're going to go. I mean, that's what we're talking, things that cause wars, and a lot of our people do not know these things.
Yeah, well, no, the name of the movie, I was just running it down to remind myself, Chinatown.
Chinatown, oh yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, Jack Nicholson.
One of the great classic movies.
Classic movie, that's right. It was about the California water situation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So water is going to become a big issue. I wrote in detail about fracking, including an explanation of what it is and how it occurs. Now, had I known about fracking previously? No, but I'd heard about it, and I heard about the town in Texas. And so I'm going, well, wait a minute, how did this happen? And so and one of the beauties now in modern journalism is something called WordPress, where you can write text, but you can also include links to other documents and other websites, and include audio and video and pictures into your document.
That's amazing. Yeah. I didn't know a lot about that, except I read your stuff, and that's how I learned about WordPress, and I read some of your stuff, and you have that interjected in your pieces.
Yeah. And so if I was going to talk about fracking and just do it in a textual environment, you don't understand. It's very hard to describe. So having a picture of the process and seeing what they do to interject the chemicals into the ground in order to be able to push the water, the oil up on the other side, and how that goes about polluting the water supply, and then basically gets into the groundwater, and it remains there. But if you keep pushing enough water out of the aquifer, it goes dry. And that's what Denton, Texas, this little town is out of water. So they're under emergency situation where water is being carried into the town. But the people are under very restricted water usage. We complained, here in the summer if it's too hot that, we can't water our lawns to make it green. They're limited about the number of glasses of water they can drink in a day.
How much they're going to be able to drink. Exactly.
Right? They're rationed.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, we got no water, you're dead. That's the bottom line. Your father likes to make it simple, If you ever got no water, you're dead.
Well, you can last without food for 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, right. I forget how many.
But without water, You have about maximum 8 days,
Yeah,
then you're gone.
I did a 55-day fast in the prisons. And I lost a pound a day for 55 days, and I didn't do it for protest at the time. I just did it, and yeah, you can go without food a long time, but you need that water. That water, you need to have that water.
So making people aware of the situation, as I began to research it, and I tend to over-research, but that's the way my mind works, is I want to know. And so I became more engrossed in it. I'm going, this is horrific. People should know about it. And that's part of human nature, is that we're all storytellers. We tell in different ways. We all have certain levels of interest. And that goes back to our roots from the cavemen who told stories via hieroglyphics. Here, it's a new medium, it's a new form. I'm still learning how to adjust my style to take maximum use of it. But it's the columns that I wrote for the Washington Post Newsweek syndicate now modernized. And the modernization, I think, helps tell a better story and a more informative story.
And what we do, and you know, I have an associate that's in Massachusetts prison,
Ralph Hamm.
Ralph Hamm, and I always talk about Ralph, and I talk about his books that we got writing, and many of my viewers know Mike Maynard, who I have on the shows a lot.
Mike, we just taped the show.
Well, that's kind of the segue I'm going with here, okay, because that will be a show that follows this, because you're talking about communication and the interest. People wonder why, Father, why are you doing this, or why are you involved in it? Because all my stuff does relate to prisons and justice and stuff like that, and at the heart of it, my interest is education for the guys and women that are inside, how they can develop and change. And one of the key ways, and the most, I believe, the most beneficial to an individual inside is communication through writing, through poetry, through that which is part of Ralph's genre that he's doing.
Yeah.
And of course, columnist, writer, journalist, you know, and editor, okay?
Well,
teacher also. So let me get them all in there, right?
Well, yes, I've had the pleasure of started a couple years ago teaching writing, and particularly to adults who are immigrants to the United States, where English is their second language. So in the course of teaching English, by helping them learn how to write articles or columns, it helps them learn not only how to formulate their thoughts in English and express themselves, but it also teaches them the discipline of the English language. Speaking English is not easy. In fact, you know, we have jokes around about, you know, two, and two.
Two, and two.
You know,
where.
Yeah. Trying to describe that to someone who doesn't know English, one of the things I've learned, I also have a young woman from Vietnam that I'm mentoring. She's getting her MBA, and I see her writing. And one of the things that I've learned that in her language, but also in Spanish languages, is that they do not use articles. So the concept of the difference between a, and the doesn't register with them.
Okay.
And you have to explain it, you know, a ball, an apple, the apple, and the difference being generic versus the specific. So in